I'm just going to say it. Women are stupid. Women expect you to adhere to your traditional masculine traits while they simultaneously can pick and choose when they can be a lady and adhere to their traditional traits. Women need to get more realistic and understand that they're not the prize. And then they also need to understand that if they're with an exceptional man, they need to make exceptions and acquiesce to that man's frame. Feminism has effectively made dating harder for you guys because your standards have went up, and alongside that, a lot of the men haven't went up. You no longer have the leverage that you thought you did. You guys went ahead and said, we're going to enter the workforce and be independent. Congratulations, you're independent of average men. What's left? Higher status guys, and they're going to want something in return.
In a sense, some of these women that still have a liberal mindset, they are looking for a guy that saves them from themselves when they've advocated for going out and being able to do it themselves. They don't want a 50-50 relationship when it comes to finances, but they want a 50-50 relationship when it comes to having say-so what goes on inside of the household. And so if you want a traditional conservative man, then you got to get it all the way on the other side. They don't want the extreme, they want the hybrid. And so when I hear women a lot of times say that they want a conservative or a traditional man, I don't believe them, because I think that they want a version of both. They still want to be heard. They want to say so, but they don't necessarily want to pay bills, and they don't want the responsibility. Myron, what are your thoughts? What's going on, big dog?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say it. Women are stupid. And what I mean by this when I say women are stupid is that here's the issue, and this is a disconnect. Women expect you to adhere to your traditional masculine traits while they simultaneously can pick and choose when they can be a lady and adhere to their traditional traits. So in other words, kind of what you were saying before, they want the guy to be a decisive decision maker that could pay all the bills and take care of them if someone breaks into the house. But at the same time, they're reserved the right to disobey you, be, rude, rambunctious, and feel as though their opinion really matters. When in reality, the whole purpose and the whole reason why they're attracted to you in the first place is because you don't give a fuck about their opinion. The simple reality is women are not attracted to their equals. They're attracted to men that are superior to them in every way. Competence, strength, income, resources, status. They want a guy that's superior to them in every way, but then they want to go ahead and be treated like an equal. And that's just not how the way the world works. So what I tell guys kind of to understand is that when you deal with a woman, you're effectively her boss, which means she dresses the way you tell her to. She does what she's supposed to do. She adheres to her jobs and duties. And if she doesn't, she could be written up and or fired from the job. And I think that's how men have to kind of deal with women nowadays, because I find it absolutely ludicrous that women will sit there and, follow their boss more than they follow their husband. Their husband will tell them, I don't like the way that you're dressed. And they'll say, well, why? Why are you being insecure? But if they showed up to work dressed in a certain way and their boss said, you need to go home and change, they would go ahead and change. And this is where we kind of have to call out the bullshit, where if you're going to go ahead and be a traditional man, that comes with them being a traditional lady, which means them obeying you. And whenever I say women need to obey men, they get all angry at me and stuff. But that kind of reveals the feminism inside them, because a lot of women will sit there and say, oh, I'm a traditional woman. But then if you say something like, well, I need a woman that obeys me, they're like, what do you mean obey? And that's one of the fastest ways to identify these undercover chameleon type feminists, because a lot of women do have feminist tendencies, despite the fact that they might say that they're traditional. Well, but when the rubber meets the road, you tell them to do things, or you try to instruct them on certain things, they don't want to listen, or they might question your authority. And this is why I think it's so important for men to not just be competent, but be better than their girl in every regard. So it mitigates the risk of them not listening to you. I kind of always look at women like Pokemon, right? For anyone that played Pokemon back in the day, you need to have a certain amount of badges as the Pokemon starts to level up. And if, let's say, you don't have enough badges and you tell, a Charizard to attack and he falls asleep, that's kind of how women are. You need to have your badges up at a certain point and beat the Elite Four a bunch of times so that when you give her a command, she listens. And I think if more men applied this concept to women, where they're basically fucking Pokemon, and you need to become the best gym trainer and get them under your authority based on your competence as that trainer, then they'll listen. And I know some women might not like hearing this, or they don't want that, but the reality is, if a guy works his ass off to get to a certain position where he's your partner, well, he had to fucking go through a lot of rings and he had to suffer to get to that position. So I'll be damned if a woman's going to tell me how to run things when I had to bust my ass to create my value. Meanwhile, she was giving her value. And this is another thing that women don't understand. Women live life on easy mode. We live life on extra hard mode. So if we do get to a position where we're an entrepreneur, we're making 6 figures a year, 7 figures a year, et cetera, we're going to demand something in response to that, because to find a guy like me is going to be significantly harder for me to find a woman like you. And this is another problem. Women don't understand that they're abundant and they're very common. The things that women provide to men that we actually value, femininity, not being fat, not being rude, not being annoying, not being a whore, you can find it, right? It's not as rare as a guy who's successful that has his shit together. So the reality is our standards are a lot lower than theirs. Since our standards are lower and we're not looking for, a top 1% woman while they look for a top 1% guy, Well, we can replace them easier than they can replace us. And this is another problem with feminism, where we lie to women and tell them that these higher status men are abundant and they want to go ahead and tolerate the fuckery. But the reality is they don't want to. They just want to have sex with these girls. And women always conflate options for real men that want to take them seriously. And just because you can fuck a higher status guy doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to keep a higher status guy. So this discrepancy in availability in the opposite gender is another thing that fucks women up. So to sum it up, I'll say this. Women need to get more realistic and understand that they're not the prize. And then they also need to understand that if they're with an exceptional man, they need to make exceptions and acquiesce to that man's frame. If you don't, fine, no problem. It's a matter of time. Either he cheats on you or you get bored and you leave, and he'll go find another girl that will go on his program, because higher status men are rare versus beautiful women are not. And we need to really have this wake-up call with women in America and feminists in general and let them know, look, feminism is here. You guys want men that are on your level, if not better. Feminism has effectively made dating harder for you guys because your standards have went up, and alongside that, a lot of the men haven't went up. So a minority of men actually rise up to the standard that most women want. You no longer have the leverage that you thought you did. You guys went ahead and said, we're going to enter the workforce and be independent. Congratulations. You're independent of average men. What's left? Higher status guys. And they're going to want something in return.
Do you think liberals can't be masculine? Myron?
I'm sorry? What was that?
Do you think that liberals can't be masculine?
In most cases, no. And the reason why is because as a progressive or as a liberal, a lot of the times liberals and progressives tend to believe in blank slate equality, where we're saying like, oh, men and women are equal. That right there is a faulty premise to begin with, because men are superior to women in almost everything that matters. So no, liberals most of the time cannot be masculine because they don't understand the inherent difference between men and women, because they believe in blank slate equalism. Most liberals do, at least.
So you don't think that you can be masculine and not think that men and women are equal? Like, you think that that's what triggers masculinity?
Well, in order for you to be masculine, you must accept and understand that women are inferior. And I'll explain what I mean by this. A masculine man, if his woman is attacked, is not going to sit there and be like, let me think about this. Or no, she's equal, she can handle it. He's just going to rise to the occasion and step in because he knows that she can't defend herself to the same level that he can. So men that are hyper masculine understand the biological differences and the inherent differences between the genders. That is why they are the masculine, the woman is the feminine. More progressive men tend to believe in equality. And you know, equality is a social construct. It's not real.
That's true.
You know, and equality really was created to give women a chance. Because, you know, if we want to be very, very painfully blunt about this, if we really believed in equality, there would be no WNBA. There would be no Title IX. Women wouldn't be playing sports. Because if we really believe in equality, we would make it merit-based, which means, okay, you guys want to have your own sports league? Cool. Are you guys able to be profitable? Oh, you're not? Okay. You're not profitable, so fuck the WNBA. But we allow women to play professional sports because we want them to feel inclusive, right? We want to be inclusive. But the reality is we would never fund the NBA if it was negative. But we fund the WNBA, even though it's negative every year, because we want to be equal. So equality only benefits really women. Affirmative action, double standards, like all the double standards actually benefit women. The only double standard I could think of that benefits men is our ability to have sex with women abundantly without being shamed for it. But you have to earn that. Most guys don't have the capability, the skill set, the game, the attraction, or the sexual market value to have sex with a lot of women. Only a fraction of men can actually pull that off. So I would argue most double standards actually benefit women because they can double dip, like I was saying before. They can go ahead and say, oh, I want to be a traditional woman in this regard, right? And find a super hyper masculine, attractive guy. But at the same time, I reserve the right to, pursue an education to make money and become successful. And that's fine. But what I am saying is, if you want to pursue the education and make the money and, be, this girl boss, you're basically forfeiting your ability to find a guy at the end of the line that's going to want to take you seriously, because that guy's not looking to date himself. He doesn't want a girl boss. He wants to date a woman that is the opposite of him. He wants a feminine, docile woman that's going to obey him. Women that are girl bosses tend to not obey men because that's why they're successful in the first place. They're a girl boss. They don't listen to other people. They have A-type personality. This is fantastic for making money and being successful, but terrible for a relationship, especially with a guy that's masculine. He doesn't want to date himself.